Starting off at the near side front of the engine compartment, you've got your 12-volt battery. Now, on top of the 12-volt battery, you've got a pipe here that supplies air to your air filter. Now, underneath this cover, you've got your positive post and positive terminal. You've got information telling you about a fuse in there. This over here is your negative post with terminal. On top of the battery, which I mentioned earlier, you have a supply pipe that takes air from the outside to your air filter. Now this part of the pipe is flexible. This is your air box itself. Now underneath there, you've got your air filter element. To the right of that, you've got one of your electrical connectors for your engine control unit. Located below the air filter box, you've got your transmission. On top of the transmission, you've got your transmission selector cables. Surrounding the 12-volt battery, you've got a heat blanket. Moving the camera to this location, you can see your plastic intake manifold. To the left of that, you've got an expansion line that takes coolant from the expansion tank to the engine. Now this, what I'm pointing at here, is your map sensor. In yellow, you've got your engine dipstick, and moreover to the left, you've got your alternator. Now on the back of the alternator, you've got your rectifier assembly. You've got an electrical connector that's part of the control circuit of the alternator. There are cooling holes on the alternator that keep the alternator cool. Down in this location, if you were to remove your intake manifold, you would see your fuel rail that feeds fuel at equal pressure to each fuel injector. Also in this location, you would see, if you were to go further down in this location, your engine oil filter and other different components. Moving the camera up to this location, you can see your dump valve. It is important to have a dump valve because if you were to suddenly shut the throttle while under boost, you would have issues where you would end up bursting a pipe. To solve this issue, you have a dump valve. Underneath the dump valve, you have your pipe that takes charged air from the outlet of the turbocharger compressor housing to your intercooler. In this location, you've got quite a few different components like coolant pipes, the pipe that takes the charged air from the blow-off valve to your inlet side of the turbocharger, and other components. This is the pipe that I mentioned about. On the modulator itself, you've got your ABS valve block, your pump, your two brake lines that goes from the master cylinder, and the 4 pipes that goes to each of your wheel cylinders. You also have, to the right, you have a electronic control unit, a big wiring harness, one of the many grounds in the vehicle, and other components. Moving the camera to this location, you can see your auxiliary belt system. Now this system is used to drive different ancillaries like your AC compressor, which is located below the alternator, your water pump, and other different components. Where it says H is the cover for your high pressure port for your air conditioning recharge point. You also have on the high pressure pipe one of your air conditioning sensors. On top of the engine itself, you have an engine cover. TGDI stands for turbocharged gasoline direct injection. There is a cutout to allow access for your oil filler cap. Engine covers are very common in modern cars. They're there to reduce noise, and also they're there to give the engine compartment a cleaner look. Now behind that you have your turbocharger. The turbine of the turbocharger is covered by a heat shield. This pipe over here, which is directly in front of my video, is part of your clutch control circuit. The 2 pipes below that feed refrigerant to and from your evaporator. Moving to the right, you can see your compressor housing for the turbocharger, your 2 coolant pipes that feeds your heater matrix, and other different components are in this location. Moving the camera to this location, you can see one of your oxygen sensors. Below that, you can just see your catalytic converter, And to the left, you've got one of your boots for your tie rod ends. Moving the camera to this location, you can see quite a few different components here. For example, you've got your brake fluid reservoir tank, your master cylinder, your 2 pipes that goes to and from your ABS modulator, your vacuum, brake booster, and other components. Moving the camera to the offside front of the engine compartment, you can see your expansion tank and pressure cap. There are 2 pipes, one an expansion line that takes the expanded coolant to the expansion tank, and another pipe that takes coolant to the engine. Underneath that pipe, you've got a piece of rubber, which underneath you have one of your engine mounts. Moving the camera more forward in this location, you can just see in blue your washer fluid cap, and below that, your washer fluid tank. Just behind the radiator assembly, you've got quite a few different components. One of your airbag crash sensors, and the cable that operates your bonnet latch. Back in this location, on the back of the headlight, you've got one of your service covers that you can remove to gain access to the interior of the headlight. You've also got your adjuster, which you can control from the operator's cabin, headlight aim, a wiring harness, another wiring harness that is used to power that headlight and control it, and other different components in this location as well. To remove the engine cover, you pull up in these locations. With your engine cover removed, you can see your valve cover. Now underneath this valve cover, you've got your valve train mechanism. Now, what you can visibly see is your pipe that's part of your crankcase breather system and your direct injection pump. To put the engine cover back on, all you have to do is push in these locations. Thank you very much for watching my video, and goodbye.